World War I first started when Archduke Ferdinand and his wife Sophie of Austria-Hungary were assassinated at Sarajevo on June 28, 1914 by Gavrilo Princip. The Kaiser receives a Potsdam special envoy from Austrian Emperor and promises the full support of Germany in the event of Austrian action against Serbia. He consults his military and naval advisors before leaving for a cruise in northern waters. On June 28, 1914, Emperor Franz Joseph of Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. As an ally of Serbia, Russia starts to mobilize their forces on July 1st, and one day later, August 1st, Germany mobilizes their armed forces and declares war on Russia. Germany declares war on France on August 3rd, 1914. Germany declares war on neutral Belgium and invades in a right-flanking move designed to defeat France quickly. As a result of this invasion, Britain declares war on Germany.
The definition of propaganda has been debated, for there are many different viewpoints on it. However, it is usually defined as any type of material used in hopes of influencing a community's thoughts and viewpoints towards one subject. Many different types of propaganda were used in World War I successfully, since people only received the information that the government wanted them to know. It twisted the truth and allowed for governmental control over people's thoughts and viewpoints towards the war. How usually people supported the war because propaganda allowed them to believe that war was worth fighting for. Some examples include convincing people to go to war, unification of the nation, conserving food, buying bonds, and more. Good examples of literary propaganda would be countries fabricating the total numbers of deaths, only choosing to report information that is beneficial to them, and even eliminating information completely, all done in order to give the illusion that fighting the war is beneficial when it actually is not. Many techniques to using propaganda. Some of them include demonizing, using atrocities, and the public was a huge weapon with propaganda too. Demonizing propaganda was really good with swaying the public's look towards a country. The way it was used was they would make a portrait of the opposing country, but they would make the other country look as if they were monsters or demons, reporting to the devil. This was a very big deal to religious people of the community, such as Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Atrocity propaganda, which brought America to the war, was used by showing a country's atrocity or crime and show how they justified them, like how the Germans blew up the Lusitania and made medals of the event and viewed it as a good deed. Also, an atrocity is defined as an extremely wicked or cruel act. The way guilt was used as a technique was they would make someone feel bad they were not in the army, helping their fellow man. Great Britain used this a lot to their advantage. Posters were commonly used to get these techniques out.
One of the first actions carried out by Britain at the start of the war was to cut Germany's undersea communication cables, ensuring that Britain had a monopoly of the fastest means of transmitting news from Europe to press agencies in the United States of America. Influencing the reporting of the war around the world with the aim of gaining support and sympathy was an important objective for all states. In Britain, a secret organization, the Wellington House, was set up in September 1914 and called on journalists and newspaper editors to write and disseminate articles sympathetic to Britain and to counter the statements made by enemies, as well as placing favorable reports in the existing press of the neutral countries. Wellington House printed its own newspaper for circulation around the world. Illustrated news carrying drawings or photographs was viewed as particularly effective. By December 1916, the war pictorial was running at a circulation of 500,000 copies per issue, and 4 editions covering 11 languages. The Chinese language Changpao had fortnightly circulation of 250,000 issues, and was described as having such a powerful effect upon the masses that the Chinese government were able to declare war against Germany. In addition to press reporting, states attempting to influence opinion using a wide range of pamphlets, cartoons, and longer books, German efforts in the United States of America centered on the production of vast numbers of publications throughout existing German culture institutions. The War Plotters of Wall Street, published in 1915, is an example of this type of propaganda. It tells of a plot by unscrupulous financiers to draw the USA into a war which would be against its own interests and ruinous to its economy. The books warned Americans against financial support for Britain, arguing the loans would never be repaid. However, German propaganda tended to lack subtlety, and the use of organizations such as the Fatherland Corporation as publishers often gave the game away. British efforts, directed through Wellington House for most of the war, took a different approach. Commercial publishers were used to give the impression that works were produced independently of state direction. Books and pamphlets were published in huge numbers and circulated a list of people identified as opinions makers sympathetic to Britain. The intention was that popular support for Britain would be built through local advocates rather than appearing to come from Britain directly.
British propaganda aimed at neutral countries, which also made effective use of Germany's misfortunes or misjudgments during the war. In 1916, an independent German artist created a small number of medals to commemorate the anniversary of the sinking of the Lusitania. The medals focused on German justifications for the act, which had claimed 1,198 lives, alleging that the passenger liner had been carrying weapons for Allied forces. The medal was found by British agents, and hundreds of thousands of copies were made and circulated to highlight the barbarity of the enemy. Most damaging of all was the Zimmermann telegram, a German diplomatic communication which was uncovered in 1917 by British intelligence. The telegram contained details of German plans in the event of the USA joining the war on the Allied side, and envisaged an offer to Mexico of territory, including the states of Texas and Arizona, in return for declaring war on the USA. Although the American president Woodrow Wilson had probably already decided to commit the war before the content of the telegrams were known, their subsequent publication ensured public support.